Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. I'm doing things a little different in this video. It's going to be a lot of random stuff, and I'm going to start off with a hopefully fairly brief review of Black Adam. There will be some spoilers, but does it really matter for this movie? Does it? I mean, I'm going to be honest. It took me a long time to work up the motivation to sit down and watch this one. It's always seemed like an irrelevant movie, and it became officially irrelevant when James Gunn and Peter Safran started running DC Studios and decided to reboot the entire thing from the ground up. And I don't think Black Adam is solely responsible for that, but I think it's definitely the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess. It's really not a good movie. And keep in mind, I'm saying this as someone with a pretty limited knowledge of Black Adam and Captain Marvel and Shazam, the whole Shazam cast of characters. They just were never like the characters that I was super into when I was reading comic books. But in spite of that, I still could see that there's something wrong with the foundation of this movie. Something is off from the very start. It obviously centers around Teth Adam, aka Black Adam, played by Dwayne Johnson. He's an ancient being with the powers of Shazam who has been in prison for centuries until the present day when he is released by a group of archaeologists slash freedom fighters from the fictional country known as Kahndaq. And it never feels like a country. It feels like a very small town consisting of maybe 75 people, but whatever. They want Black Adam to be their champion in their fight against the Intergang mercenary organization. I'm sure you can sense by my tone just how enthusiastic I am about all of this. I mean, Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam is he's just boring. I don't think The Rock is a great actor by any means, but he's at least charismatic, right? But not in this movie. He has the charisma of a toenail. Everything he says is instantly forgettable, but he doesn't say a whole lot because he spends the vast majority of the running time just murdering bad guys. I mean, we are well into the second half of this movie by the time anything of actual relevance happens. And even that's debatable. The Justice Society, or at least 4 members of the Justice Society, show up. I guess they couldn't afford any other members. Or maybe this is it. Maybe this is the whole team, in which case they should change their name because 4 people does not constitute a society, justice or otherwise. And none of these characters have been introduced in a DC movie before, so this is the first time we're seeing them. But the movie acts like we've seen them for the last 10 movies or some shit. It's really bizarre. Aldous Hodge as Carter Hall, aka Hawkman, was one of the standout characters, I thought. He was great. And Pierce Brosnan as Kent Nelson's Dr. Fate was also very good. At least until they killed him off in what was essentially a very avoidable death. I think he could have lived. And he dies trying to protect Carter Hall from dying, which I get that, but there's something kind of funny about dying for a character that has the power of reincarnation. But okay, he dies, and they kind of wasted Dr. Fate. And his powers seem very limited compared to what they should be. Whenever a fight breaks out, his main ability is that he can turn himself into multiple man. He just attacks guys with multiple versions of himself. I mean, and that's it. I know he can't do that, but come on. There's got to be more to Dr. Fate than that, right? And, maybe it doesn't matter that he died because there's like 80 different Dr. Fates, aren't there? Like, I don't even know all their names. I know there's Ken Nelson and there's some other fucking guy, and there's probably people who know better than I do. And maybe it's kind of fitting that The Rock is the star of this movie because a lot of it feels like a wrestling match. You think it's finally over, and they they give him the Stone Cold Stunner or some shit, and the referee counts 1, 2, and then he kicks out just before the 3, and the match continues. Except at that point, there's still like a good 30 minutes left of the movie. And by a good 30 minutes, I mean a bad 30 minutes. He fights, without question, the worst CGI villain I've ever seen, Sabak. I mean, what were they thinking? It's worse than Steppenwolf in Justice League by far. There are old video games that are rendered better than this character. And you have one Captain Marvel bad guy fighting another one, essentially. And of course, Black Adam wins. He saves the day, despite being a villain. I mean, to me, this is like Doctor Doom showing up and being a hero. It's fucking weird. And throughout the movie, Carter Hall has been trying to convince Black Adam that killing is bad. And the movie seems to end with the message that killing is not bad. I mean, I don't really get it. They seem to say that not killing is a stupid way to be a hero. That's the message of the movie. I mean, okay. I mean, that is kind of the standard for the DCEU. I mean, that is basically what they stood for, isn't it? I mean, how inspiring. And of course, the after credits scene, which is more talked about than the entire rest of the fucking movie, when Henry Cavill as Superman shows up to confront Black Adam. And it seems like he's working for Amanda Waller, who is also in the after credits scene. I mean, give it a rest with Amanda Waller. How much power does she fucking have that she's enlisting the help of Superman? She can boss around the most powerful beings on the planet. She snaps her fingers and they come running. But she still has to put bombs in the heads of low-life criminals in order to get them to obey. Explain that to me. And at any rate, it seems to set up a Superman versus Black Adam situation, which is kind of hilarious because Black Adam is famously a Captain Marvel / Shazam bad guy. And yet, he is so noticeably absent from this movie. I don't even think he's referenced other than saying the word Shazam. And I think that's because when you pick Dwayne Johnson to be your serious villain, you can't have your hero be this comic relief goofball in a suit made out of fake muscles. Just doesn't work. And maybe they should consider not calling him Shazam. He used to be called Captain Marvel. I know that's confusing because Marvel also has a few Captain Marvels of their own. But Shazam is what he says to turn into Captain Marvel, right? It's the name of the wizard, right? So if you're going to call him Shazam instead of Captain Marvel, that means this fucker can't even say his own name without turning into a 12-year-old kid. Who are you? Oh, call me Shazam. Oh, boom. Oh, excuse me. Now I'm in my fucking Jenko jeans and I'm late for algebra class. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But like I said, I'm pretty ignorant of this character, and I'm sure that is pretty evident to those of you who know him well. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And, the movie also at one point uses the Kanye West song Power for an action sequence. I mean, first of all, you could not have picked a worse time to use a Kanye West song in a movie. But this fucking song came out in 2010 and has been overused to shit. It's just so hacky at this point to have this in a movie in 2022. I don't know. Just mediocre all around. It's just a mess. It's not the worst comic book movie I've ever seen, but it's very forgettable. And the movie's been in development for what, like a decade at this point? And this is the best we could do? It's not cheap, but it feels very cheap. And if I was going to give it some dick rocks, I would give it 1 dick rock out of 5. Just not really worth watching, in my opinion. And I know some people have a strong opinion about James Gunn, but I think he's the right guy to put in charge of DC. It sucks that Henry Cavill is done now as Superman, but other than that, I'm definitely in favor of a full-on reboot. It's long overdue. Clean slate, start fresh. Don't try to catch up with Marvel overnight. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Black Adam. I'm going to move on to a couple of other random topics before I punch out. Okay, first off, most of the people who comment on my videos have been awesome. Really nice, insightful, and encouraging. You're all awesome. You're the best. But there have been a few complaints about my swearing, my cussing. And I just want to show you my favorite one so far. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to pile on, but this is what this person said. And I quote, "A gentleman can make a perfectly emphatic point without the use of profane language. This is not to say he's not versed in profanity, but he frequently has something better to say. Is this the best you can do? Downvoted and not subscribed." End quote. Well, first of all, thank you for the downvote and the comment. That helps the channel out far more than if you had just said nothing. And this is clearly the dean of a boarding school from the 1950s who stepped into a time machine and is now leaving comments on YouTube videos. I mean, I don't know if there's any other explanation for it. I mean, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, dude. It's 2022. Get the fuck over it. If you think I don't have anything of value to say, you might be right. I never said that I did. But me swearing doesn't prove that one way or the other. I mean, you know who never swore, ever? Bill Cosby. I rest my case. You know? Go take a fucking walk. What do you want me to tell you? And I just want to say thanks to everyone who subscribes and enjoys my crude little videos. This is obviously a very tiny channel in the grand scheme of things. But it's also much bigger than I thought it would be. I thought I would be lucky to get 50 Twitter friends to subscribe and listen to this nonsense. But now it's close to 350. So that's great. And you know, if I could somehow get that number up to 1,000, YouTube might actually have to start paying me for this shit, which would be just fucking hilarious. Then again, they're not going to pay me because I'd probably have to stop cursing in my videos. And as we already went over, that's not going to fucking happen. And before I go, don't worry. It's almost over, I promise. I just want to talk about some of the videos I have planned for the new year. I'm obviously going to continue doing Star Trek Next Generation videos. That's obviously my bread and butter. But I also want to start doing some more original series episodes for my commentaries. I've already done a couple, but I don't know how popular it's going to be. I don't know how many TNG fans are super familiar with TOS. So let me know. Is that a bad idea? Let me know what you think. I'm definitely going to do a couple because I have a few in mind. But let me know if I should lay into it and do a bunch. And I also want to start doing some Star Trek movies. The first one I really want to take a look at is Star Trek Generations. I have a lot to say about that one, and I'm sure it won't be anything that hasn't already been said a million times, but I want to say it anyway. And hopefully add my own personal touch to it. And I also want to tackle the Indiana Jones movies, and yes, even the horrendous fourth one. Indiana Jones might be my second favorite franchise behind Star Trek. And there's a new one coming out this year, which I'm almost certainly going to do a review on. And I just want to talk about some Indiana Jones movies leading up to the release of the new one. And I also want to do some obscure horror movies. First couple that came to mind for me were Return of the Living Dead. I'm a big fan of that one. And Life Force, which I guess is more of a sci-fi horror, but it's still great, very underrated. And Patrick Stewart is in it, so what could be bad? And of course, I also want suggestions. Leave a comment about something you'd like me to talk about in a commentary video. I already got a couple in my last video. Troy Alexander suggests Ghostbusters. I could definitely see myself doing that movie. Thanks, Troy. Sven Stat, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sven suggests Kinjet, or Kinjite, and Invasion USA. That's a Charles Bronson movie and a Chuck Norris movie. I don't think I've seen either one of them. I definitely haven't seen Kinjite, so it might be cool to check those out. And my friend Will from Laugh Trek, check him out on Twitter, @LaughTrek. Will suggests Sliver. That's the 90s Sharon Stone erotic thriller that is not Basic Instinct. I never saw it. I'm a little intimidated to do that for the channel because it's not really in my wheelhouse. It seems like one of those 90s I'm dating a psycho movies. It feels like they made a lot of those in the 80s and 90s. Like, oh, I met this person, and they seem really cool, and they seem really nice, and all of a sudden they have the same hairstyle as you, or they're killing a pet bunny, and now you're really fucked. It seems like that kind of thing. I mean, I have no idea. It could be something totally different than that. I'm just guessing. I guess I'll find out if it's similar to that. But thanks for the suggestion, Will. I'm definitely going to check it out. And thanks to everyone who actually listened to this nonsense. And I'm hoping to have some far better nonsense coming up soon. Hopefully. But, I can never promise anything. And yeah, Happy New Year. Have a good one. And until next time, take it easy.